बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अस्सलाम वालेकुम। ये टोफल सीरीज़ फॉर द बिगिनर का लेसन है। आज हम इसमें ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन देखेंगे डायरेक्ट एंड इनडायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट्स की पर्टेनिंग विद रिस्पेक्ट टू डिफरेंट वर्ब्स। सो विदाउट फर्दर अड्यू लेट्स स्टार्ट द लेसन। Now, what is the transformation? There are always two ways of writing the objects of many verbs without changing the meaning of the sentence. बहुत सारे verbs ऐसे हैं जो कि flexible होते हैं in order to adjust your object positions and yet in either case आपके पास जो sentence की meaning है, जो उसका gist है, वो alter नहीं होता. अब हम देख लेते हैं वो कौन से दो तरीक़े हैं जिसके ज़रिए आप objects को interchange कर सकते हैं. पहला तरीक़ा ये होता है कि आपका जो indirect object है आप उसको direct के बाद लिखते हैं और ऐसे में उसको किसी preposition के साथ sandwich करते हैं. You just have some preposition right before your indirect object if you are intended to place your indirect object right after your direct one. So I hope just pause your video and make a note of this कि direct के बाद अगर आप indirect object mention कर रहे हैं तो ऐसे में आप उसको preposition से proceed करेंगे. There must be preposition right before your indirect object. दूसरा तरीक़ा however ये है कि आपके पास indirect object direct object से पहले मौजूद हो और in that case you do have no worry of carrying any preposition regardless. So ऐसे में आपको preposition place नहीं करेंगे, you don't need one. It's just that the indirect object comes right before your direct object. So these are the two ways जब आप object transformation करते हैं of any of your verb. And that how you in either cases जब आपकी object की position alter भी होती है तो आपकी जो sentence की meaning है वो kill नहीं होती. Now here comes the prepositions that we just talk about कि वो कौन से prepositions हैं that are likely to precede your indirect object. These two prepositions are for and to. The two prepositions that you use in such cases of object transformation are for and to. I hope this much is clear so far. अब हम proceed करते हैं further कि आपका indirect object क्या है और direct object क्या है. Now indirect object is the one which is animate object. An animate object is the one who is living being. I hope this makes sense. Now it's not just animate object, it's also the one for whom and to whom something is done. आपका indirect object एक तो यह है कि पहली कंडीशन ये है कि वो animate होगा यानी कि someone living, and दूसरी कंडीशन ये है कि वो उसके लिए कोई काम परफॉर्म हो रहा होगा. The action, he is the one who is responsible, who gets the action, for whom the action is being carried out, who receives an action to be precise, right? So that is supposedly an indirect object. On the flip, आपका जो direct object है that can either be a person or a thing. It has no compulsion of one particular kind. It can be a human or it can be a thing. And the second condition is that he's the first one who receives an action. The direct object is the one who is the first one who receives an action. इसको हम further clear करते हैं with an example. I gave the book to Dan. So in that case आपका जो direct object है that is the book, and by now we know that direct object is the one which can be a person or a thing. So here we have a thing, and second he is the one who first receives an action. So the book is an object because is the direct object because it's the one who first action was received because the first action was the book was taking in my hand. Taking of the book in my hand is the first action. So this is the direct object. सेकेंड कंडीशन इज आपका इनडायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट, चूँकि ये डायरेक्ट के बाद आ रहा है तो ऐसे में आपके पास देयर हैज़ टू बी preposition बिफोर योर ऑब्जेक्ट. सो देयर वी हैव टू. सेकेंड ये है कि इट हैज़ टू बी एनिमेट. यस, डैन इज एनिमेट, ही इज़ अ ह्यूमन, ही इज़ अ लिविंग बीइंग. एंड थर्ड ये है कि इट इज़ अ वन फॉर whom action is done. And the second action is the indirect one because this action was given to, the book was given to Dan. So Dan is the one who receives, who actually get this action of getting the book. So that's how you should know the animate object, the direct object and indirect object, and be watchful about कि आपने preposition को कैसे place करना है in case आपका indirect object direct के बाद place हो रहा है. Now it's not that every verb is very flexible of having such object transformation. आप हर verb के साथ इस तरीके की object transformation alter करके आप अपनी सेंटेंस की मीनिंग को स्टैटिक नहीं कर सकते. सो देयर आर सर्टन वर्ब्स जो आपको अलाउ करते हैं कि आप उनकी ऑब्जेक्ट ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन करें यानी कि डायरेक्ट और इनडायरेक्ट की पोजीशंस को ऑल्टर करें एंड येट सेंटेंस स्टिल मेक द सेंस. सो फर्स्ट वी लुक एट दोज लिस्ट ऑफ वर्ब्स जो कि फ्लेक्सिबल हैं इनफ कि उनकी ऑब्जेक्ट ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन की जा सकती है. आई विल कॉल आउट ईच वन ऑफ देम. रादर वुड सजेस्ट कि आप अपनी वीडियो पॉज करके इसकी लिस्ट को भी नोट डाउन कर लें. सो हियर वी लुक एट द लिस्ट ऑफ वर्ब्स हु आर कंफर्टेबल फॉर द ऑब्जेक्ट ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन. Starting off with bring, build, buy, cut, draw, feed, find, get, give, hand, leave, lend, make, offer, owe, paint, pass, pay, promise, read, sell, send, show, teach, tell and write. These are the list of verbs that we are mindful about कि इनमें इतनी flexibility है कि आप इसमें object transformation कर सकते हैं. And what is object transformation? You can place either direct object or indirect object either ways, but you have to be watchful about कि आपने उसमें grammar का किस तरीके से ख्याल रखना है. One important more thing is some of these verbs can be followed by either the prepositions of for or to. राइट कुछ आप इनमें वर्ब्स ऐसे हैं जिनको आप फॉर के साथ भी यूज़ कर सकते हैं और टू के साथ भी आप फॉलो कर सकते हैं वाइल अदर्स मस्ट बी फॉलोड बाय वन और दी अदर. कुछ के साथ आप फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी के साथ फॉर भी कर सकते हैं और टू भी यूज़ कर सकते हैं बट देयर आर सम जिनके साथ आप किसी एक को ही प्रिसाइसली स्पेसिफिकली यूज़ कर सकते हैं. नाउ द ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन एग्जैक्टली मीन्स द सेम एज अ सेंटेंस विद द ओरिजिनल प्रोपोजिशंस. वन इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग अगैन कि जब आप ऑब्जेक्ट ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन कर रहे हैं तो उससे आपको माइंडफुल होना चाहिए कि आप सेंटेंस की मीनिंग को नहीं ऑल्टर कर रहे. इट्स जस्ट द ग्रामर tricks you are applying but there is no change in the meaning of the sentence whatsoever. So you should be mindful about कि आप इन object transformation के नतीजे में अपने जो sentence की meaning है उसे change नहीं करें. It's just you are opting another way of writing the sentence. अब हम कुछ इसके सेंटेंस कंस्ट्रक्शन फॉर्मूला रूल देख लेते हैं सो दैट वी नो हाउ टू कंस्ट्रक्ट सच सेंटेंसेस. Starting with the first one where you have subject that followed by verb, then comes the direct object. And we know जब आपका direct object पहले होगा तो that there must be this must be followed by some preposition. And the two prepositions that we just looked at are for and to. It can be either. And then comes your indirect object. और दूसरा फार्मूला ये है कि अगर आपने डायरेक्ट को बाद में प्लेस करना है इन दैट केस यू विल हैव अ सब्जेक्ट ऑफ अ सेंटेंस फॉलोड बाय वर्ब then comes your indirect object and when your indirect object is the first one then you have no worry of carrying any prepositions regardless. So there is no preposition in this formula and directly it followed by the direct object. And I'm sure not need to worry about telling you over and again that what is the direct and the indirect object. Now here comes important note that in the second rule where your indirect object is before your direct object there is no preposition exist and we just looked at कि आप जब आपने indirect object को पहले place कर दिया then there is no question of keeping any preposition regardless. Now here we look at few examples. The first example is the director's secretary sent the manuscript to them last night. This was the first one. This is the direct object who first receives the action. Then comes the preposition and the indirect object is them and again them is referring to some animate ones, some humans, and then here comes your complement or the further sentence construction. Or in that case we have the direct object, preposition and the indirect object. What if we have indirect before? In that case the director's secretary sent them the manuscript last night. Now the verb sent is directly followed by the direct object by the indirect object which is them and in that case there is no need of carrying any such preposition to or for that matter and then the manuscript comes in. So in that case you have your indirect object them followed by the direct object which is the manuscript. And we know by now that the direct object can be a thing or a human. And what about the incorrect way of writing such things? The director's secretary sent to them the manuscript last night. As we have spoken before कि जब आपने indirect object को पहले place किया है तो in that case आपको there is no requirement of keeping any preposition before it. So there is no need of carrying such preposition. This is wrong. So rather you just write sent them the manuscript last night. Sent to them there is not the correct thing to write whatsoever. One important thing to note is if the direct object and the indirect object are both pronouns, the first rule is generally used. One important thing हमने अभी तक आपको डिस्कस किया कि there are two rules where you have first rule के मुताबिक आपने indirect को पहले आपने direct object को place किया, preposition को place किया and then indirect object comes in. However, अगर आपके पास दोनों जो आपके objects हैं direct and indirect they are both pronouns. In that case it's preferable that you only use the first rule which is direct object followed by preposition followed by indirect object. Again अगर आपके दोनों objects pronouns हैं तो you have to preferably use the first rule where you have a direct object, preposition and then comes your indirect object. उसकी example देखते हैं. They gave, the verb gave, again this is from the list we just look at. They gave it to us. This is your indirect object, this is your direct object, this is your preposition and this is your indirect object. So the incorrect thing will be they gave us it. Although we have just flipped the sequence of the objects and we know कि gave आपका वो verb है जिसमें आपके पास object transformation की flexibility है. बट हमारे पास ये भी हमने रूल मालूम किया है कि जब आपके पास दोनों ऑब्जेक्ट्स प्रोनाउन हैं, सो इन दैट केस आपको प्रेफरेबल है कि आप फर्स्ट रूल फॉलो करें जिसमें आपने डायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट फॉलोड बाय प्रेपोजिशन एंड देन कम योर इनडायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट. यहाँ पे आप as it नहीं कर सकते. दिस विल बी एब्सोल्युटली इनकरेक्ट सेंटेंस कंस्ट्रक्शन. अगेन जस्ट माइंडफुल अबाउट कि जब दोनों आपके ऑब्जेक्ट्स प्रोनाउन हैं तो आपने फिर फर्स्ट रूल को स्टिक करना है, आपने सेकंड रूल को स्टिक नहीं करना. लुक एट सम एडिशनल एग्जांपल्स टू अंडरस्टैंड द होल कॉन्सेप्ट फर्दर. The first example is John gave the essay to his teacher. Now we know कि जब आपके पास direct object पहले होगा तो this will be followed by a preposition and then indirect object his teacher comes. Again for the repetition, आपका direct object can be a person or a thing and he is the one who first receive an action. And जो आपका जो indirect object है that must be an animate object which means someone living, and secondly is the one for whom and to whom something is done. So the essay was written for the teacher, so that's why it is the indirect object. और दूसरा तरीका ये है कि आपने जो verb gave है इसके साथ object transformation की flexibility है तो आप इसमें indirect object को पहले place कर दें. In that case आपका जो preposition है उसको skip कर दें and then directly comes your direct object which is John gave his teacher the essay. Second example, the little boy brought some flowers for his grandmother. Now some flowers, these are the direct object and since we know it can be a thing or a person, this followed by preposition and then indirect object come which has to be someone who is animate, someone who is living and for whom action is performed. बार बार कहने से मकसद ये है कि आपको इसकी बार बार क्लैरिटी हो जाए और मेमोराइज हो जाए. और सिंस हमारा जो वर्ब है brought, this is from the list of the verb and here we have flexibility कि आप इसमें object transformation कर सकते हैं. So instead of this writing this way you can bring your indirect object before your direct one. So in that case just skip your preposition which is for. So the sentence will be the little boy brought his grandmother some flowers. Few more examples. I fixes can never be a part of this. I fixed. Now few more additional examples. I fixed a drink for Maria. A drink is your direct object. It can be a thing or a person. It is a thing here, followed by a preposition and then direct object which is indirect object which is an animate or human. So Maria is a human. She is the indirect object. And fix is from the list of this verb जिसमें हमने आपको बताया था कि is not from the list actually. No, it's not from the list. Okay. Now here comes an additional few more examples. I fixed a drink for Maria. A drink is your either direct object followed by transformation followed by preposition and then indirect object, and you can flip this object position from direct to indirect. Now here comes indirect before. So I fixed Maria a drink. Then you just skip out or omit your preposition. Another example, he drew a picture for his mother. He drew a picture for his mother. A picture is your direct object followed by a preposition for, and then comes your indirect object which is your mother, an animate human, and bring it to the first position. He drew his mother a picture. So just omit the preposition regardless of whatever the preposition may be. Okay. He lent his car to his brother. He lent his car to his brother. So this his car is actually the direct object, then followed by a preposition and then indirect object his brother. And you can flip the position of your objects. Now bring your indirect object before your direct one. So he lent his brother a car, and at the same time आपने जो omit करना है वो preposition है which is true. Another example, we owe several $1,000s to the bank. Now the several $1,000s is your direct object followed by preposition to, and then comes the bank. However, and you can flip the positions where we owe the bank several $1,000s. So now in that case you just omit your preposition and the bank is your indirect object comes before your direct object. Important thing to note is that the verb introduce and mention must use the preposition to. अभी तक हमने आपको list of verb भी बताई और prepositions भी बताया, but the two verbs which are very particular about the preposition, that which preposition comes after them is introduce and mention के बाद they must use the preposition to, and the transformation in that case is not possible. For introduce and the verb mention, आपका जो preposition है that is to, and the transformation is not possible. इसको इस example देख लेते हैं. I introduce John to Dr. Jackson. And yet makes sense, you can't deduce otherwise, you have to keep it that way. So the preposition is to, and there is no object transformation possible. Second example, I introduce Dr. Jackson to John. So in that case, it's not that you are going to take out the preposition and transformation inflexibility here for these two, and so you can't flip it at anyways. Another example is he mentioned the party to me. He mentioned the party to me. So that's how you should be watchful about कि किन verbs के साथ आपकी preposition कौन सी है, और every verb is not flexible for such object transformation. So this was precisely all about आपका जो object transformation की detail है. इस concept की further clarity के लिए अब हम एक exercise को go through करेंगे. It's an exercise of 10 questions. इसमें आपको rewrite करना है sentence को by placing the indirect object immediately after the verb and eliminating the position. Again आपने इसके अंदर indirect object को verb के फ़ौरन बाद लिखना है, and this in that case you will just omit your preposition and directly इसके बाद direct object आ जाएगा. So I hope you understand the whole concept by now, but rather just pause the video here, try to solve them all. If you are not done yet, फिर हम इसकी answers को भी go through करेंगे. So for those who are done with the answers by now, we can straight jump into answer sheet. Starting with the first one, Mary showed the photographs to me. The direct object followed by preposition and the indirect object comes. So now हमने इसमें से omit करना है to preposition, और अपना जो indirect object है me उसको पहले place करना है. Mary showed me the photographs. That's how you have to make the sentence. Second question, I will send the books to you next week. Now in that case just omit the preposition to and bring the indirect object forward. I will send you the books next week. Question 3, my sister sent a game to my daughter for her birthday. Now you have to bring your indirect object before your verb, after your verb. My sister sent my daughter a game for her birthday. So you just omit this preposition to. Question 4 is he brought the telegram to her this morning. Now you have to omit this to from the sentence, this preposition, and bring her right after the verb. He brought her the telegram this morning. Question 5, the author gave an autographed copy of this book to his friend. Now you have to omit this preposition to. In that case, the author gave his friend an autographed copy of his book. Question 6, they wrote a letter to us. So you have to omit this to and you have to adjust the sequence. They wrote us a letter. So in that case, indirect comes right after verb and then followed by a direct object with no preposition in the middle. Question 7, Louie drew a lovely picture for his mother. Louie drew his mother a lovely picture. So you just omit the preposition and replaced the and have adjusted the placement of an indirect object, the mother. Question 8, she made a bookcase for her cousin. She made her cousin a bookcase. So you just omitted the preposition for. Now comes question 9, that teacher taught grammar to us last year. You have to omit the preposition to. In that case, that teacher taught us grammar last year. So this omit the preposition and you have to bring the indirect object right after your verb, and then the direct object comes in. And the final question of the exercise, Mary handed the tray to her brother. Answer, Mary handed her brother the tray. So you just remove the preposition to and you bring your indirect object right after your verb, and then comes your direct object. ओके हमने भी एक एक्सरसाइज की जिसमें हमने ऑब्जेक्ट ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन के अंदर प्लेसमेंट की इंडायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट की और ओमिट किया हमने अपने प्रेपोजिशन को. नाउ वी हैव अनदर एक्सरसाइज ऑन आवर वे. इस एक्सरसाइज के अंदर हमारी जिम्मेदारी ये है कि हमें इन सेंटेंसेस के अंदर प्लेस करना है योर डायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट इमीडिएटली आफ्टर द वर्ब, एंड इन दैट केस हमने सप्लाई करना है इट विद प्रेपोजिशन. अगेन आप अपने फॉर्मूला को रिकॉल करें कि जब आपके पास डायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट पहले मौजूद होगा तो दैट मस्ट हैव अ प्रेपोजिशन, देन इट विल बी फॉलोड बाय एन इनडायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट. सो आपने अब इन तमाम सेंटेंसेस के अंदर डायरेक्ट ऑब्जेक्ट को सर्च करके उसको वर्ब के बाद लिखना है और फिर उसके बाद आपने preposition लिखना है एंड देन यू कम्स योर indirect object. So just pause your video here and get the answers of all these 10 questions. So once you are done with, then हम इसको further इसको solve करेंगे इसके इन तमाम questions को. So in case you are done with this exercise by now, we can directly jump into the answers. So starting off with the first one, John owes his friend the money. Now John owes the money to his friend. So we bring the direct object followed by preposition and then comes the indirect object, which is his friend. Question 2. My friends sent me a bouquet of flowers while I was in the hospital. Now answer, my friends sent a bouquet of flowers to me while I was in the hospital. Question 3. The clerk sold us the records. Answer, the clerk sold the records to us. So you just bring your indirect object and have your preposition after your direct object records. Then comes question 4. They found him a good, inexpensive car. Answer, they found a good, inexpensive car for him. Question 5. Picasso painted his wife a beautiful portrait. Answer, Picasso painted a beautiful portrait for his wife. Here is our preposition insertion. I hope you are getting track of all those insertions. Question 6. My father read us the newspaper article. My father read the newspaper article to us. Here comes question 7. Pass me the salt, please. Pass the salt to me, please. Question 8. She bought him a red jacket. She bought a red jacket for him. Question 9. The girls couldn't wait to show us the bicycles. Answer, the girls couldn't wait to show the bicycles to us. Question 10. The construction crew built them a house in 4 weeks. Answer, the construction crew built a house for them in 4 weeks. So this was all about the lesson of transformation of direct and indirect objects. I hope this all makes sense. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel, like my videos, and share with your friends and family. Thanks for watching this video.